or an income issue.
Mike, your thoughts on opening this up to more families, regardless of geography or income or what have you?
From a general perspective, I'd like to see it opened up as broadly as possible. I'm not sure how fiscally responsible that would be for the state. There is a fiscally neutral approach they have to use in the numbers that you just mentioned, between 7,500 this year, 15,000 the next year, and the third year. There is no cap. That's part of a strategic plan, looking at the entire process. But yes, it was mentioned a little bit earlier. I think one of the focuses needs to be student success and parents' estimation of what is student success in conjunction with the schools that they attend. And to that degree, I think that the door should be opened. Yeah.
All right, I want to get back to this discussion in just a minute, but right now we need to head over to the WFIU studios and to Kyle Stokes and his guest. Kyle?
Yes, Stan, we'd like to bring into another voice into the conversation here, a bit of an insider voice as well. His name is Dick Comer, and as we introduced him at the beginning of the show, he's a senior attorney for the Institute of Justice, which is a Washington-based organization that's been supporting a lot of states trying to implement similar school voucher programs. Mr. Comer, welcome to the program.
Hi, I'm delighted to be here.
So you've been very involved in the Indiana litigation here. I'd like to, just for the benefit of our audience, maybe you can tell me how you've been involved with the lawsuit that's been ongoing here in Indiana.
Well, first we had an advisory role in sort of the drafting and creation of the original legislation. We were asked by the Foundation for Educational Excellence in Indianapolis to sort of write a constitutional law paper on whether a scholarship program was feasible in Indiana. We thought it was. And now we are representing parents as defendant interveners, parents who are receiving scholarships for their kids to attend private school under the program. So we are aligned with the state, helping to defend them from the attack from the teachers' unions, basically.
I'd like to pull out a certain amount of that statement that you just made, because it gets to a very critical point that this is sort of at the center of this case. It basically hinges, so you argue that it's not for that this program isn't necessarily for the benefit of the parent of the schools rather, but for the benefit of the parents. Is that right?
Yes. I mean, it's like school choice programs in a lot of other states. I mean, it specifically provides benefits to the parents and empowers them to purchase an education from private schools or, in fact, from other public school districts.
It's a distinction, though, that I think to a lot of people seems to parse the issue, because ultimately this money ends up in the hands of religious institutions, and that's state money, taxpayer dollars. Isn't that right?
That's right, in the sense of it's taxpayer dollars when it's given to the family, and then it becomes family dollars when they pay it to the school. But in principle, all that this does is extend to the K through 12 educational level the same principles that we have been using for decades at the post-secondary education level, including state programs in Indiana. The Constitution of Indiana does not distinguish between higher and lower education, yet Indiana has been providing scholarships, means-tested scholarships, to Indiana college students to attend any public or private institution in the state of Indiana, including Notre Dame and, any number of, I think there's about 28 or 29 religious colleges that kids are attending. But nobody thinks of these as aid to religious colleges. They're aid to the students who are eligible. Same thing with the federal Pell Grants those students receive and Stafford student loans.
Well, let me throw in another element here, and forgive me for boiling down a lot of case law here, but essentially there's a Colorado case that says that these types of programs are constitutional so long as there are adequate non-religious options. But in Indiana, it's been well noted that the program is overwhelmingly populated with religious schools.
Actually, that Colorado case that you're referring to distinguish between pervasively religious schools and non-pervasively religious schools, and that distinction has actually been thrown out by the 10th Circuit Federal Court of Appeals. So that's no longer a part of the Colorado program. The Colorado program now functions exactly like Indiana's program does, which is it makes no distinction whatsoever between religious colleges and secular colleges.
In the very brief amount of time that we have left, Mr. Comer, I'm wondering if you can address some of the concerns of the panel that while legally you can make the argument that this program is for the benefit of parents and students, that it isn't necessarily bringing greater benefit to divert all of this money away from public institutions towards private and parochial schools.
Oh, on the contrary. I mean, the problem that we have experienced with public education is that it is, in fact, a public monopoly system. And it will benefit greatly from increased competition in the same way that higher education benefits from the fact that private colleges exist and compete with public colleges for students. What we have, unfortunately, is the result of what we always get from a monopoly, which is high cost and low quality. And despite the fact that Indiana has far more than doubled its educational expenditures in the last 30 years in constant dollars, Indiana public education has not improved, and it's time to try something different.
Okay. Mr. Comer, thank you so much for joining us here today on InFocus.
Thank you for having me.
That was Dick Comer. He is a senior attorney at the Institute of Justice, and he's involved in the Indiana school voucher lawsuit on behalf of the state of Indiana, so he's defending the school voucher program. Stan, let's send it back to you.
Thanks, Kyle. I want to bring up something that Mr. Comer said at the end there, which is the idea of competition. I was thinking about it, and I thought, if you were to extend this to a lot of schools who have the opportunity to take voucher students, theoretically, parents could, by acclamation, choose which are the best schools, because theoretically, the parents are going to want to send their students to the best educational opportunity they can find in the area that is available to their student. Barry, I'll start with you on this. Would it work that way? Could you force out the worst performing schools, and we don't have to go through what Tony Bennett is going through today with canceling some schools around the state?
Actually, we do have some research that throws light on this. The programs in Milwaukee and Cleveland have been going the longest. And so they have generated a fair amount of data about student performance. And what the researchers say is that the vouchers do not make student test scores improved, and they do not make them go down. So that the actual effect on student performance is non-existent. So I honestly think that the issue of improvement of student performance, while it sometimes, as with Mr. Comer, gets mentioned, is really not of real concern, because vouchers do not improve student performance from everything we can see.
Let me put this out to all of you in general. You heard Alex Dameron from the Department of Education in our beginning package say that what this program does is allows parents more choice in how they're going to spend the educational dollars that go to their children. We've had a number of people on this very program who have told us parents are not nearly involved enough in their children's lives, especially in their children's education, which to me begs the question, are parents able to do the research that would be necessary to send their children to the best schools and make adequate use of the voucher program to its fullest extent? Rebecca, why don't we start with you on that?
Well, I again want to caution that I think a lot of the research that's been done hasn't been done eliminating a lot of the things that can contaminate the research. So whether or not they're improving test scores or not, the research shows that the kids who are often choosing to go to voucher schools have many more disabilities, have many more behavioral problems, and or they're behind when they get to the new school, and so it takes a while for them to catch up. And then there's also selection issues, selection bias that happens. So I think a lot of the studies really show that we can't definitively say one way or the other that vouchers don't improve students. And then to go back to what You just asked me, I'm sorry, what was the question?
Whether parents are involved enough to know
Right.
how vouchers would best benefit their
Right,
child.
and there's actually some more research out there. What happens when a student wants to change and they don't have a parent that's involved? So if you have a parent who doesn't speak English well, or who doesn't want to switch schools or choose a school, and you've got a student that does, how are we going to cater to those students? And then in New York, there's been difficulty. They don't have school choice, but in the way we're talking about it, but they have in New York City a large problem with schools reporting accurately what they have to offer for the students. And so how are parents going to get the information that they need? And one of the recommendations that the Center for Education and Evaluation Policy has made is that the Department of Education really aggressively find a neutral party to maintain a database for parents and students so that they can make educated decisions about where their kids should be.
Mike, I want to ask you real quick in just our last 15 or 20 seconds, if a parent came to you and it was clear that they want to go to Lighthouse Christian, but you think they might not necessarily get the most for their child, despite the fact your school would benefit from having that child's voucher, could you see yourself turning someone away?
That's a very fair question. And yes, through our admissions process, which is very much separate from the whole voucher process, yes, we have had some parents and students who it was not a good fit based on philosophy, based on those things. So yes, that has happened.
All right. Well, my thanks to the three of you this evening. You've been a great help in trying to suss out how this program works, and I expect there will be a number of more discussions that go on about this as it goes along. Thanks also to Kyle Stokes, my co-host for this evening. Kyle, yeoman's work, well done.
Thank you very much, Stan. It was a pleasure.
Please do send us your questions for next month's program to infocus@indiana.edu. You can also leave a comment or see portions of this show by visiting our website, indianapublicmedia.org/infocus. And thanks also to all of you who watched and listened. Have a nice night.
Production support for InFocus is provided by Smithville, a locally owned business serving central and southern Indiana since 1922 with residential and business internet, voice, and security services. Smithville, local pride, global technology. Information at smithville.net. Hoosier Energy, providing electricity for central and southern Indiana electric cooperatives and their member customers. Information at hepn.com. And by viewers like you. Thank you.